If you're working on a flip house, residential, commercial, rehab, repair, renovation, ground up construction, you're going to have unique needs that need to be addressed in your insurance program. We're going to talk about that and some related subjects here in just a moment. Hey folks, thanks for watching. I am James Jenkins, Chief Risk Officer of RiskWell, and this is part of the Real Estate Investor Insurance Academy video series brought to you by RiskWell. In this video, we're going to take a look at the flip insurance, rehab, renovation, builder's risk. It goes by a bunch of different names. We're going to take a look at what you need to know to make sure that you get exactly the right program with the right coverage and the lowest possible price. So let's dive into the screen share and take a look at builder's risk insurance fundamentals. All right, folks, here we go with the slide share. If you'd like a copy of these slides, please feel free to ask. I'll be happy to provide that for you. Actually, let's get my camera on there. There we go. That helps, doesn't it? So let's just jump right in. We're going to look at the sources of risk on a property that is under construction. The first is going to be third-party bodily injury and property damage on the premises. People that you don't know might wander on or be there for other reasons and get themselves hurt. Third-party property damage might occur as well, and you'd be on the hook for that. So we want to make sure we are covering for those losses. You also have your property damage or loss, the existing structure, as well as your materials and tools and equipment and things like that. We want to make sure that your assets are properly covered. You've also got contractual liability, relationships with third parties where you might be found to be at fault and liable for financial damages. So we want to make sure we're covering contractual liability in your insurance program. Also looking at job site injuries, this is typically handled by workers' compensation insurance, which does extend to 1099 employees as well, not just W-2. So make sure we have a work comp conversation if you are investigating your insurance program with RiskWell. Let's take a look now at some of the insurance coverage that is essential to making sure that you and your project are properly protected. First is going to be general liability insurance. This is for third-party accidents and injuries as well as property damage. You're going to want to make sure that any builder's risk policy either contains a general liability component or you're getting the liability coverage from a contractor who is extending their general liability coverage to the project in question. Next is going to be property insurance. This needs to include both the existing structure, if it's a rehab or renovation, as well as the improvements being made to the structure, which would include your uninstalled building materials. Make sure you pay close attention there, that any policy that you write does cover uninstalled building materials that are present on the site. We also want to make sure we have additional insured obligations covered, as well as a waiver of subrogation. This is typically required by third parties, a private lender, or other financing, as well as any other contractors that you may be working with. Additional insured and waiver of subrogation is typically handled inside the policy. You just want to make sure that it's on there, satisfying the compliance for whoever you're working with. Next is going to be a hold harmless agreement. This is protecting you from the stupidity and mistakes of other people. You're going to want to make sure that any sort of agreement you have with other parties that are involved in your project are providing you with a hold harmless agreement. Lastly is workers' compensation. It's very important that you are aware of workers' compensation requirements in your state. Here in Texas, we're a little bit complicated. We do have some requirements that are different because Texas is a voluntary state for workers' compensation. Don't ask me why. They didn't give me a vote in that thing. So lastly, we're going to look at some common errors to be aware of. If you see any of these things in your insurance program, you really should consider finding a different representative because these are easy errors to make, but it's also going to be avoided by anyone who knows what they're doing. So first is looking at writing a policy that doesn't offer prorated refunds. Not all insurance policies are created equal. A lot of builder's risk policies will not give you a prorated refund if you finish the project early, if you sell the project sell the property before the end of the policy term. So make sure you're asking your agent about that. Next is going to be writing a generic vacant property policy that doesn't have a builder's risk endorsement on it. This one is particularly egregious with inexperienced agents or brokers that don't really know what they're doing working with investors. They'll simply write a vacant property policy through any number of carriers and not apply the builder's risk endorsement. So next is going to be neglecting to include premises liability coverage or addressing it with you. A lot of carriers out there will provide property coverage only and not provide general liability coverage unless you specifically ask for it. So make sure you are addressing both the property and the liability exposures. And lastly, on the common errors is neglecting to include water coverage or sufficient limits of water coverage. Depending on the policy and where you get it, there may be no water coverage at all or very limited coverage for water damage related claims. So that's it, folks. What questions do you have after watching this? We are available for a no-cost consultation. If there's anything my team and I can help you with, I would love to. Please reach us at info@riskwell.com, as well as our phone number of 469-678-8001. This has been Builder's Risk Insurance Fundamentals, and thanks so much for stopping by. If you see value in what we are doing here in this series, please consider subscribing to the RiskWell channel, liking this video, and ring the bell for notifications so you can find out when we are dropping new content. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day, boys and girls. Please remember, life is risky. Risk well.